This episode could contain mentions of emotional abuse and suicide, which can be distressing to some listeners. It could very much get heavy at times, so if it becomes too much or too overwhelming, please take a breather and come back later. If you or someone you know is having a mental health crisis or thoughts of suicide, dial or text 988 to get connected to a trained crisis counselor 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Crisis counselors listen empathetically and without judgment. Your crisis counselor will work to ensure that you feel safe and help identify options and information about mental health services in your area. And remember, from Harley at the Unapologetically Spicy podcast, you are loved and you are wanted. What's up, everybody? This is Harley, and welcome back to another episode of the Unapologetically Spicy podcast. I know it's been a long time since I posted my first episode, so you're probably wondering where the hell I went. So, yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about where the hell I was, give a little life update, and yeah, let's go ahead and get started. If you heard my trailer, I bet you thought I sound real muffled, didn't you? Well, today you can thank our sponsor, my friends at Northern Virginia Hypnotherapy, for you being able to hear my beautiful voice as clear as day. Northern Virginia Hypnotherapy is a small mental health clinic that offers hypnotherapy, life coaching, mediation, and family support services in Fairfax, Virginia. As y'all will soon learn, I think everybody needs a therapist. And that's what's great about them, is that they offer free hypnotherapy courses at the Fairfax Library to those who want to help a friend or family member. They also work with the Hypnotherapy Resource to host free educational meetup groups on Tuesday nights through Zoom. If you're a veteran, homeless, or have Medicaid, don't worry, they got you with their free pro bono programs. So what are you waiting for? Go to www.novahypnotherapy.com and book your free phone consultation. That's www.novahypnotherapy.com and find out how they can help you today. Now, back to the show. Since this episode is more of a life update episode, I am going to do this raw, unscripted, and in my full neuro spicy black experience. So be prepared to hear a lot of ums, uhs, I'll probably be fidgeting as well, and trailing off a little bit, but that's the point of this podcast, right? To discuss the neurospicy black woman experience. So I am going to do that. I just want you guys to be mindful of how this podcast is going to be presented, how this episode rather is going to be presented. If it bothers you, I'm sorry. You can feel free to skip this episode, and I will hopefully release a new episode in the next week or so. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So, as I said in the intro, I had originally started this podcast back in March, and I haven't uploaded an episode since. Why is that? Well, it's not because I gave up on the idea behind this podcast. It's not that at all. I think that what I'm trying to do is an amazing thing, amazing concept, and I want to see it all the way through until there's no need for this type of podcast in the space anymore, which I hope never happens. But you never know how life goes. So I started this podcast with this amazing concept, and I started this podcast in the midst of my day-to-day normal life struggles with work and home and my relationship, or love life, I should say. And that stopped me from having the spoons and the energy to finish the scripts I was writing and record the episode and then finally post it for all of you to listen to and hopefully connect with. So, yeah, which topic do you guys want to start on? Work, love? I'm going to start with work just to get it off my chest because it's been weighing heavy on me this week. So, TLDR, too long didn't read, for those of you who don't know what that means, is I got laid off fired from my job this past week. And I am not a person that usually gets fired. I usually leave companies because I find something better. I job hop for better salaries, better benefits, and things like that. And this is the second time in my whole professional career that I've ever gotten fired from someplace. So it hit me hard, it hit me heavy, and I've been trying to cope with that. So with work, I know in my first episode, The Stigma, I talked about having to be the strong Black woman. And that was one persona I definitely had to embody in the workplace. I had to be the strong Black woman that wasn't fazed by mistreatment, that wasn't fazed by all of the changes happening, wasn't fazed by being excluded. So, yeah, that was really hard. I want to take you guys back in time in my story, where almost a year ago, actually, I had interviewed for a management position. I had been at the company for several months, and I essentially set up the what is the word I'm looking for? The foundation, the fundamentals of my department. And the department that I was in was a brand new department for the company. Like, I set up the process, I was the one that said, we are overloaded, or rather I'm overloaded. We need more people. We need to hire more people to handle this load so nobody gets burnt out, or I don't get burnt out. And at first it was like, no. Or at first it was like, yeah, I agree, we're going to hire people. Supposedly they're working on hiring people, and no one was ever hired. And then they decided to open up a management position, which I applied to. What's up, everybody? This is Harley, and welcome to another episode of the Unapologetically Spicy podcast. Why are you confused by me introducing myself again? Well, the first 8.5 minutes of this podcast was a rough draft, but I decided to keep it in because this episode has been a long time in the making. It's been in progress for several months while I was dealing with life issues. And we're going to start this over again. So Cue the music. So, yeah, thank you for bearing with me and listening to the first part of this episode. I promise it will be worth it. And if it's not worth it, then, you gave me a listen. So, appreciate it still, regardless. So, like I was saying in the beginning or the rough draft of this episode, I started this podcast with an amazing concept, creating a safe space for neurospicy people, specifically neurospicy Black women like myself. I disappeared for over a month after publishing the first episode, and I was going through a lot. And when I say a lot, I was going through a lot, okay? I was going through job loss, like I mentioned in the beginning. And then a couple of days after I lost my job, or actually, sorry, not a couple of days after, a couple of days before I lost my job, my long-term relationship ended. So a lot of things were happening at once when I originally started recording this. Since then, I've had to deal with the aftermath of my relationship ending, job hunting. I'm still job hunting, and dealing with medical issues. So a lot of topics I could definitely cover in this episode, but I want to keep it more focused on the whole life update thing. So yeah, going back to the story that I started to tell about my job. I had interviewed for a management position and went through the whole interview process, and they decided to hire externally for the management position, which, is fine, except not fine, because my personal belief is that they wasted time and money that they could have just given to me, because I knew the new department, because it's my department, was my department. I knew it inside out. I knew everybody. I worked with everybody. I worked with a lot of different people. And promoting me to a management position, I would have worked with more people. But, I guess they wanted to keep me in the dark, and not have too much of that face in upper management, which that's their prerogative, and it's a dumb decision. You need to have more Black women in upper management. Can I get an amen? Anyway, so I worked for that company for almost 2 years, and again, I was eligible for the management position, and they promised me, when I didn't get the management position, they promised they would give me a raise at my 1 year mark. That 1 year mark came and went, never got it. I asked a bunch of times for my money. Where's my money? Where's my money? Never saw it. All the while, I kept getting more and more job responsibilities and more disrespect. Soon the writing was on the wall, and I knew they were trying to find an excuse to fire me. I felt it. I felt it in the way that my manager at the time was treating me. I felt it in their hiring practices for the team. I felt it within the company. And I did the best that I could do with what I had at the time. Whenever we did add more Black women to the company, which only happened twice while I was there, and it took a long time for them to do that, I made sure to give them a welcoming space, kind of like what I do with this podcast. Gave them a welcoming space and made sure they were aware that they weren't blindsided like I was by mistreatment, And I'm thankful that I did that. I have no regrets about that. I was able to gain 2 friends because of that. And I still talk to one of them every other week or so. So that's pretty nice. Yeah, I am not going to go into detail about, I could go into detail, but I'm not going to go too much into detail about what they did because I was forced to sign a agreement, if you will, to not disclose too much about what I experienced at this company. But I will say this. If you are working in a company and you're a Black woman like myself and you feel the microaggressions, you feel the bad vibes, the bad juju, if you feel that, you're not imagining it. Make sure that you spruce up your resume and make sure you're always looking, because at any moment they could let you go, like they did with me. My only regret is that I wasn't able to leave the way I wanted to leave. So that's what I will say about that. Transitioning a little bit, I also mentioned that a couple days before I had lost my job, my relationship had ended. I was planning on doing a separate bonus series to discuss my previous relationship in more detail. And, I still might, because I think bringing light to situations that neurospicy people can get into in relationships is very important, because we may not see the signs, we may not understand. And I know that I stayed way too long and put up with way too much. I put up with way too much in that relationship, and I should have left. I should have left. I knew that it was time to leave, and I didn't, because I believe in the best of everyone. I believe in the good of everybody. But now, after dealing with this experience, I'm not so sure. I am not so sure if I still believe in the good of everyone. And I don't necessarily think it's my previous relationship made me stop believing in the good of everybody. I still believe some people, not everyone, but some people are good. What I know now is that some people are also really good with masking. And a lot of people really need to invest in therapy, which makes me want to work on this podcast even more, because if I could reach the neurospicy people and convince one person who is hesitant about going to therapy to work through their childhood issues or something like that, or the complex PTSD that they have just for existing, then I know I'm doing something good in the world. I know I am. But going back to the relationship, there was a lot of trauma before me when I walked into that relationship, and I was not wise enough, which it's not my responsibility, but I will say I was not wise enough to see the warning signs of who this person was and who this person became to me. And I went from liking this person and wanting to be their partner to loving this person, wanting to be their partner, to adoring this person, wanting to be their partner, and giving up pieces of myself for them, which you never want to do. You never want to give pieces of yourself up for them. And now I am not saying that I was a pure, untraumatized force of nature, because I definitely wasn't. I was in a very different place in my life back then from where I am now. And that probably makes me sound a bit pretentious. Ugh, a bit pretentious, but I can admit that there were some things that I did that weren't healthy. My partner at the time was emotionally and verbally abusive to me. He called me names. And there was a point that I got so sick of the mistreatment from him. The mistreatment from him on top of the mistreatment from my job, and just feeling like no one cared about me, no one really loved me, and feeling trapped and just wanting space, my own space, for somebody to love me. I remember telling him at one point for him to get out, for him and his kid to get out. And that wasn't a kind thing to do. I was acting out of a place of trauma. But at the same time, that doesn't excuse his behavior of him calling me a parasite, him making jokes about cutting off my phone so I wouldn't be able to talk to people, him moving me across the country and isolating me where I was dependent on him, me begging for him to take me out on dates. And not even a month ago, laughing about it to my current boyfriend's ex-wife about how he helped me financially, and all I asked him for was date nights. Which, if you really think about it, you are helping your partner, this woman who you say you want and see as a partner. You're helping this person out financially. And they're complaining to you that you don't take them out on enough dates, and you think that makes them a bad person. To me, that's absolutely wild, absolutely crazy. And what's crazier is the feeling that I got, feeling that I was crazy, the feeling that I was expecting too much to want to be involved in my own way, within my own capacity, with him and his child. But it wasn't appreciated. He wanted to control me. He wanted to control how I contributed to his family. He wanted a family unit, and everybody wants a family. No one wants to be lonely. No one should ever feel lonely. Everyone deserves to feel loved. But you can't create a family unit and expect to feel loved when the person you're creating a family unit with you're not loving them back. You're not giving them basic kindness, decency, respect. Whenever they tell you that they're not feeling well, when they're tired, they're depressed, you just act as if you don't believe them. And that's what happened with me. I felt like whenever I said I was tired, it was more than just being tired from depression or any other, my other mental health stuff. It was also being tired from other internal things, which goes into my medical journey. Within the past several months, I have been poked and prodded and had blood taken from me often. I am convinced that doctors are just vampires, that you have to be a vampire in order to be a doctor, because why do they need so much blood? But trying to figure out what's wrong with me, trying to figure out why I'm tired, having to go to all these medical appointments, and I didn't even have the support of my significant other. My significant other was too busy because he cared so much about his job. He cared more about his job than he did about his own family. And I was alone in an almost 5-year relationship. I was alone in dealing with the treatment going on at work. I was alone in dealing with my body, feeling like my body was working against me. I was alone in feeling like my mind was at times attacking me. I felt alone, and I know better now. I am in a slightly better place, and I can say for sure that I am not alone. There are people out there that love me. I know that I am radiant. I know that I am beautiful. I know that I am strong, and not in the sense of the strong black woman, that stereotype. I'm strong in a different way. For everything I've had to go through in my life, I know that I am strong, stronger than most people can be, stronger than most people are, because of the amount of bullshit I've had to deal with. And I'm grateful to be able to be in a place where I can blab for over 30 minutes on a podcast, that a growing podcast, where my friends support me in my dreams and my endeavors, where I can feel loved, be loved, not just by others, but by myself. I am finally learning to love myself, and it took a long time to get to this point, and it is such a struggle sometimes to love myself. There are times when I don't want to get out of bed. There are times when I have stared at the ceiling and just wondered, what if I didn't wake up tomorrow? There are times I have wondered, why me? Why am I on the list of the universe's strongest warriors? Why did I have to go through everything I've gone through in my life to get to this point? And a part of me believes that it's not fair. Part of me believes that I should be able to love myself without going through so many hardships. But in a weird, sick, twisted way, at least to me, I'm glad I went through some of these things. I'm glad I learned. I'm glad that I was in that relationship I was in. Not because of everything that I went through with that person, but I am glad that I can now understand what it really truly means to be loved, what a real partner is, who my real friends are, to know what I really want out of life. And you know what? I think that's kind of cool. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode and supporting me. I am hoping to get back into the swing of things. I'm not going to promise when I'm releasing the next episode. I am jumping back into working on getting all of that set up and ready for you guys, so you have more to listen to whenever you are doom scrolling or on your way to work or on a road trip or something like that. So remember, I want to build this podcasting community with you guys and for you guys. So let me know what topics you want to listen to, what you want to hear, what you want me to rant about, like my opinion on something. Just, whatever. I'm going to end this particular episode with a poem that was submitted to me months ago that I never got to post or, read or whatever on an episode. So I'm going to share it now. It's a poem called Find You a Person. Find you a person who loves all of you, not just your surface. Find you a person who loves you all the time, not just for convenience or when they want to. Find you a person who loves you on your bad days, embraces your quirks, and joins in on your silliness. Find you a person who sees the cracks and the fractures of your past and not only embraces them, but fills them with love and care while assuring you that the damage won't reoccur. Find you a person who, where others see an obstacle, they see an opportunity. Find you a person who turns your worst days into your best ones. Find you a person who makes you smile effortlessly. Find a person who makes you float. Find a person who gets lost with you. A person who yearns to bask in your presence and whose presence you feel empty without. And when you find that person, you'll know. It can be scary. It can be hard. But if you're willing to search, you'll find you a person. And when you do, I'll be excited to meet them. If you're vibing with me, make sure you drop the Unapologetically Spicy podcast a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcast fix. Want to talk about the podcast online? Use hashtag unapologeticallyspicypod to start the conversation. Make sure you tell the important people in your life what we're trying to do here. And until next time, lovelies, stay spicy.